Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. Another choppy day in the markets, up and down, all around, very quickly. And so we're going to take a look at Bitcoin, some of the names that I'm watching here. I did a scan of a lot of charts, kind of a broader market scan earlier today. And, in summary, there really aren't a wide number of alt versus BTC charts that are what I would consider strong charts. There's a lot of names still drifting lower, some attempting to put in some pretty good lows, but there are a handful of very strong names, some of which I covered in the last video. So I'll go over some of those and a handful of other names that I'm going to keep an eye on here. But first, let's take a look at Bitcoin. So here's the 1 hour chart. And for those of you that were watching the price action here recently, we had this quick move up, and then we basically just sat in a very tight range for most of yesterday and earlier today. Almost not surprising, the quick smackdown, high volume move, then it sits tight, and then big move up. It has just been very volatile. These type of moves in the market have almost become commonplace, at least for Bitcoin. And of course, the reaction spills over into the alts as usual. But nonetheless, very volatile, very shaky. But if you zoom out and if you take a bigger picture look, this is what I've mentioned, right? We are attempting a change in the trend here, right? We were in this channel. We're starting to find a low here, and we're starting to move higher. And so within this range for the last few days, it has absolutely been up and down, very choppy. And most of the moves happen in a very short period of time. If you look at the 5-minute bars or the 30-minute bars, you can see the majority of the moves take place in those time frames, and then you sit tight for several hours before moving higher. But looking at the bigger picture, it is looking like we're turning the corner. We had a rally, made a pullback, a retracement, which I talked about yesterday, and it looks like we're trying to rally again. Now, earlier today, it looked like that was going to fail, and so we still have to keep an eye on that. There was a couple of patterns that I was watching here. First, this potential on the 4-hour chart for a head and shoulder pattern was forming. If you factor out the left shoulder and just look at the last two peaks, you could also say that was a double top that was potentially forming, but the effect was going to be the same. You draw the neckline going across, and if a break below that neckline, that was going to show a failed rally attempt here and some more downside action in the near term. If we can break above this most recent consolidation and ideally get back into the 7,700 range, that would negate this pattern. However, if we see a break below, then you can expect that we're going to go down to around the $7,100 area. Now, if we do that, that's going to be a retest of this bigger picture trend line that we've all been watching here at the lows. And so coming back down to that area would be another test of that. Right now, it doesn't look like we're going to break that neckline, so I'm not looking for that, especially with the big volume reversal that we saw kind of starting to negate this bearish pattern that was forming on the 4-hour chart. There's still a little bit over an hour left in this latest 4-hour bar, so we'll have to see how this closes. But right now, it looks like the momentum is shifted. Looks like we're going to go higher in the near term, which will start to negate this pattern. But just want to emphasize, guys, that we are in a little bit of a transition period here. Following the big pullback that we've had, we're trying to establish a new low. And this action, the price action we're seeing here, reminds me a lot of what we saw in that late March, early April time period where the action was very choppy. Prices were trying to turn the corner. There was a little bit of a battle going on there with the bulls and the bears. Now, the action hasn't been as choppy, but it certainly feels the same, right? The ups and the downs and the battle that's happening here near the lows. So that's what I'm watching here. Those are the levels to be watching on Bitcoin near term. But, if you look at the broader news, the sentiment, it's very mixed still, right? There's still a lot of bearish sentiment. We saw an article talking about how Google search trends for Bitcoin are down. That's not really that big of a surprise because during the big blow-off mania stage that we saw in Q4, it's just natural for people to have a lot of more interest versus when prices have been in a slump for most of this year, interest will naturally wane. But you look at a lot of people leaving the space, you look at a lot of traders kind of throwing in the towel here. But on the flip side, if you look at some of the fundamentals are still very strong. We're hearing, the SEC just named a blockchain czar, crypto czar, and so clearly the space is going to mature and continue to grow there. There's a $700 million mine in New York that's going to be built. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff happening, even from Asia. A lot of the region there is still bullish on blockchain technology. And so from a fundamental perspective, we're still moving in the right direction, and there's a lot of growth happening. But certainly prices are battling it out here in this big picture. Let's take a quick look at some of the other names I'm watching here. So I mentioned Binance in my last video, and that one continues to break out to make new highs, has been very strong, probably the strongest name in the market right now. And as far as bigger cap names go, just very good pattern, very good movement in the last several days. A little bit extended near term, but I mean, just new high territory at this point. The momentum's to the upside, and so it's going to be hard to tell, is it overbought? RSI, as you know, can lose a little bit more significance when we are making new high ground. So at this point, you're just kind of looking for price action. We did see a pretty big reversal with some volume here near the top recently, and so watching this here, if it breaks out above that, then you can see another leg out. But for the most part, still very strong. The same story on the BNB USD pair. Ontology, another one that continues to move higher, looking very good. Also breaking into new high territory. You can see we are basically right at the old closing highs here. This is the 4-hour chart, and there's a little bit of a battle happening, but also very strong, very good volume here in the near term. And you can see on the 1-hour chart, we had a little consolidation here that it broke out of earlier today, pulled back, retested that breakout point, and now it's going back and testing this resistance to the upside. So there's a little bit of choppy. You can see all the volume here near term, but still very close to the all-time highs. One of the stronger charts out there. I've been talking about this daily chart pattern for some time, this consolidation. Once we broke that downtrend, the first test was going to be these recent highs, and it just continues to march higher. So a very good looking chart all around. Another one is VeChain, just continues to march higher, looking very good. Gave you a couple of good secondary entry points, broke the downtrend here, and then just today also breaking the downtrend there. If you look at the 1-hour chart, moving higher off of this little consolidation that it put in. Was certainly volatile today with the action in Bitcoin. You can see the market just spills over. This is the VeChain VeChain BTC pair, but you can see we were breaking out, then Bitcoin had the big quick sell-off. This pulled back in. Here it is trying to rally again. But looking at the daily picture, it's continuing to march higher, testing a little bit of resistance right now, but all around still looking pretty good. Ethereum's trying to hold up here, a little bit of a potential bull flag, maybe a bull pennant forming on this daily chart. But the important thing is it's still below this resistance point that I've been wanting for it to see clear first. So we had this rally, bounce right into resistance, and there's been a little bit of choppy action here, but you can see the chart's really starting to tighten up here. Now this could go either way. Ideally, we want to see this resistance level taken out, and above that could really start to see some more momentum to the upside. A breakout on Ethereum would also help with the overall sentiment of the altcoins right now. They're still very much consolidating for the most part, with the exception of the handful of names that we're pointing out, but most of them are still consolidating and many still pulling back. So watching Ethereum here is a little bit of a bellwether. ZIL also still marching up higher nicely after breaking this downtrend that it was in. Still looking pretty good. If you go to the 1-hour chart, you can see was also very choppy here earlier today with some of the action we saw in Bitcoin. But nonetheless, the broader trend, it's still looking pretty good, maintaining this uptrend in the shorter term time frames. And so one of the better acting charts here near term, you can see it's battling against this prior resistance point right now. Clearing above that, if we go to the 4-hour chart, let me hide these here. You can see the next resistance level is going to be at these prior highs back here in and around that $1,800 or 1,800 Satoshi mark or so. Walton still moving higher after breaking out of this little resistance zone on this 4-hour chart and just marching along nicely. Seen some good buying volume come in here on this recent move higher. The daily chart also put in a nice base and is confirming with some good volume on the upside. So Walton's looking pretty good here near term. Decred. So Decred was one of the stronger names during this recent pullback, was holding up very well, has since been pausing here for the last couple of weeks. And so I'm watching this chart really consolidate here, really tighten up here near the highs. If you look at the big picture on Decred here, you can see it's approaching the prior highs versus the BTC chart. And so I'm watching this here to see if it can see another leg up, which would be another test of these prior highs. So right now it's just kind of sitting tight, and one to keep an eye on if this market gets going. 0x also doing something similar. Now 0x had a very strong move and it was due for a pause, needed that consolidation, and that's what we saw here exactly. And now the last couple of days sitting in a really tight range, a very narrow channel there, but this could go either way. You can see this pattern is becoming very symmetrical, and so it's really tightening up. We'll see this break out one way or the other in the next few days or week or so, but watch out for some volume to come in if it decides to break to the upside. And finally, EOS. Now EOS did have that breakout a few days ago and has since been pulling back, pausing a little bit, but still holding above that breakout point. Now this is the EOS BTC pair, and so far it's holding up, letting this moving average catch up, so could be setting up for a good secondary entry point, but got to keep an eye on this most recent low. It's bouncing here, but it's starting to really tighten up. A little bit of an equilibrium pattern forming. Ultimately, I want to see it take out this most recent high around this 18.8K, 18.9K Satoshi level. So that's going to be it for today, guys. One last thing I did want to remind everybody, there are some scam emails going around. There are people or individuals, groups, whoever, trying to pretend to be me. And on my website, I actually had to put a no ICO reviews please on my contact form, because I am flooded with emails every single day on people asking to do video reviews for ICOs, promotional, sponsored videos. You guys know I have never done any sponsored videos on this channel, and I don't plan to. And so if you are getting emails, or if there are people pretending to be me asking for payment to do promotional ICO videos, please do not send them anything. That is not me. Those are scammers. So just want to let you guys know. Be careful out there, guys. A lot of scammers still out there, and that's just the nature of the industry right now, the nature of the internet right now. And so just be careful on who you send any funds to. So thanks for watching, everyone. Take care, everybody.